Doing pretty good. How's it going tonight? Yeah, I mean that's good that nothing was damaged there. I'm glad everything worked out for you.
Yeah, you know what? I think my microphone was muted that entire time.
I heard you.
Oh, you heard me, but I don't think anybody else did. But that's fine. I just saying that my name is Greg G. Monty Nicholson. This is obviously Tim, Tim noted hipster Reeves, and the entire time that I was talking about a fender bender that I was in earlier today. That luckily there was not a lot of damage, nothing can be claimed, so on and so forth. So, but that's what you guys kind of heard the one side of the story on. All right, how was your day, Tim?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Went to the in-laws like we do every Sunday, just about. We watch a little bit of football, eat dinner, did a
Nice.
Target run afterwards. The usual.
Gotta go to Tarjay.
Oh yeah, Target, especially since we won't be in our new house until probably either real close to or just after Thanksgiving. So we're kind of starting to shop for Christmas stuff, which I normally don't do this time of year yet, but making
Sure.
an exception.
Do you have a registry or anything up that you want to kind of pimp out?
No, not really. We're fairly set. We're just kind of looking for Christmas decorations at this point.
Gotcha. That makes sense. You got a new house, you want to decorate it, make sure everybody knows that you're that type of family, right?
Yeah. Um, I don't have we don't have the style of house that it's going to be complete Griswold, but I'm going to do what I can.
There you go. That's awesome, man. So, what do you think of Revelation? What was your overall kind of opinion of it?
So for those that don't know, Shoot Project has the big three, sort of like WWE has their big four. For Shoot Project, it's Reckoning Day, Master of the Mat, and then Redemption. So typically, that fourth pay per view sort of changes throughout, depending on the year. We've had Elite, we've had Rise a couple of times. I think when I first started in Shoot, there was Salvation. Um, so that's kind of what Revelations is here. And even though it's not one of the kind of recurring big four or big three, for me, I thought it was great because it's kind of a once in a lifetime possible sort of show. It was very heavy as far as the type of the matches. I'm sorry, I do have a beagle who's being a jerk right now. Um, so it was very, very heavy on the types of matches we had. We had a last man standing, we had a cage match, we had the barbed wire death matches in the main event. So this was a show that was super heavy considering the way the cycle went, and I thought it wrapped things up nicely for some things, and it kind of continued stories really well for others, which we'll get into. Overall, I thought it was a great show.
Yeah, definitely. What was the second pay per view?
Um,
Third. I want to say
Third, I think, because I
third.
know there was Rise,
Yeah,
and the Rise happened before I got back here, but then we had Redemption, and now this is Revelation.
I want to say I want to say 3-2. So we've kind of found a little bit of our footing. Obviously, there was the lumberjack, trying to figure out the stipulations and such with Fire Pro Wrestling. But overall, like I feel like the same way you did, where it was just a great show overall, and the production was done really well, of course, as always, Josh. So thank you very much for that. And and yeah, so let's kind of jump into things. I know that you said that you like to kind of go about um, talking about your work, but I just want to say that the intro video was done really well. I mean, it was you could see it. It was visual and it was done really well. So I wanted to congratulate you on that. That was really cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that here, and I appreciate all the love that I got for doing that intro video there. Typically, in the last iteration of Shoot, it was usually B or Scotty doing intro videos, and they were always done so well. So I had some fill on that. Um, what I like going for is basically the way that process started this time. Eddie messaged me and said, "Hey, here's the name of the next pay per view. I have a suggestion for the song, and he
Mm-hmm.
came up with the Johnny Cash, God's Gonna Cut You Down. And I was like, that's great. And he also liked the idea of what I did, I think, with Redemption, having the two different songs kind of blend into each other.
Yep.
So we kind of went back and forth on a few different songs. We settled on Danzig's How the Gods Kill because it had the same, not necessarily the same sound, but the same kind of aesthetic to it. So it was just a matter of kind of figuring out where to blend it. And all credit to everybody who's writing segments and promos because a lot of what I tried to take for the intro videos comes from that. So biggest one obviously was B wrote Buck breaking out of the grave with the title coming up first. And I remember writing either in the leadership channel or might have been in one of the general channels, like, well, I've got a big visual for the intro. That really helps out. So for me, I like to try to make those as cinematic as possible
Yeah.
because now that we're showing the videos of the matches instead of having to write them, that's kind of my process behind everything. And it's kind of, I find a theme to try to stick to.
Yeah, and you did a really good job of that. It was like I said, it was very visual. I could see everything that you were talking about, everything that you were doing. I'm kind of scrolling through it here as we're talking about it, just so people can kind of glance at it if they need to. Yeah. And then, of course, the intro song was called Avarice by Harris Heller. And it was just kind of poetic, I thought, because the first segment on the show was an Avarice segment, which played really well with that, I think.
Yeah, Avarice is this character that he's so cheerful in the way he speaks, but there's this underlying sort of menace to it. And that's done so well with the descriptions of how he speaks. So almost like sometimes it's in italics when he's doing that crazy, a little bit more crazed, menacing speech, and then he goes back to the sort of goes back to a regular sort of cadence and cheerfulness when he's speaking normally.
Yeah, it's something that has an underlying creepiness to it that's done really stupendously by Eddie. So,
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things about this particular segment too, because the song, I know, periodically they, B and Eddie, they go on kind of song binges. One of the, I think Phil Collins was the type of subject, and I thought it was just really cool to kind of see him use that song and transition that to how Avarice feels about the Shoot project.
yeah. So, the with Avarice being the voice of Corazon is and the whole Revelation theme, the whole God theme, everything like that. It was the perfect first segment for the show. I thought with just the theming and everything of that nature.
Yeah, 100%. Like that was the perfect way to kind of start the show off with him, especially because he was like, I think the setting was like outside of the epicenter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I think so too. Let's go back.
Yeah, I mean it's awesome
Yep.
to see that type of stuff.
Outside. So then it leads right into the new Vanguard versus Jonas Coleman and Real Deal, which is Corazon and Scion versus Real Deal.
Yeah, it's kind of Josh versus Josh versus Josh versus Josh.
Yeah, that's that's what I was gonna say. Is it was crazy that it was all four characters, and there was still a match that was super hyped. Like people, I was definitely interested in reading. I'm sure everybody else was definitely interested in watching how this all played out, because Josh and Eddie doing the voice was a great idea, and it was a really masterful role play during the promotional period. So I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really well done. And yeah, like Josh said, shout out to Ref Clark Philman, who I think is reffing basically every match. Again, he's a workhorse.
Yeah, I think that's definitely mad props there. And, the fact that Josh was able to do all the writing that he did just because he has nobody to work with on this particular match. It was just all him. So I thought that was a lot of good stuff. And the match itself comes across, even in Fire Pro, like this big fight feel. Even with the entrances, and Corazone's entrance at the end was done perfectly, and a lot of the in ring stuff was great too, and it ending with, of all people, Scion, the newest kind of iteration and the evolution of kind of Josh's characters, absolutely KOing Coleman there at the end, and I can't remember the name of that finisher that he uses, but that was like almost perfect. Fire Pro does this like all the time now.
Yeah, they were talking about like the drama and things like this, but having the critical like out of nowhere at the very end there, I thought that was really sick. That was something that
Yeah, and the fact that a lot of these matches on this show weren't like ridiculously long, I think contributed to it being so good too, because this was a match that really did come out of, like, the finish on this match came out of absolutely nowhere.
yeah, it was. What's that Brock fight where everybody thought the finish was just?
Yeah, Brock Randy Orton. It was something like that, except better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement. So
Yeah, if I had to have predicted it going into that match, I wouldn't have predicted by any means Scion getting a critical on Jonas. I thought it would be better if the new Vanguard team won, but I didn't think it would come like that. It was a nice surprise to start the night on matches.
I'm watching this, and they just did the exchange of blows and things like that, and then they both collapse. It's pretty funny. Yeah, you would think that I don't know that you could write it any better than what happened, is what I was trying to say there, I suppose. Because I would think that if anybody was going to win on the new Vanguard team, it'd be Corazon, and it ended up being Scion, which was the shock in its own right to me, and then the way that it happened, just a double shock to me.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that segues really nicely into the post-match too, because when Corazon sort of takes over, and they start to kind of, he drops Real Deal, and then they get Jonas, and he's ready to carve him up and scalp him basically, and he kind of mouths to Scion, not yet, that he can't take the box cutter. It's like Scion did the heavy lifting in the match and dropped Coleman, and now Corazon's going to take his place as the leader and do what he wants to do.
Yes. Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm so hyped for what happens after this. I'm kind of losing track of what I was going to say, but it's interesting that there's a shout out to Mike Dexter in this segment, and then we had a little bit of a conversation about Mike Dexter in the Discord. I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I wasn't around for a lot of Mike Dexter. I've heard the kind of story behind it a little bit, but I did think that was interesting as well. And what comes towards the end of this segment really was a shock to me. I knew nothing about it. I think Josh swerved me a little bit with it. Come, hang tight. I gotta grab the dog real quick. Come on, douchebag.
Yeah, sure. I will say that I think Josh was working on getting this handler back, which I think just because it's on the screen I can talk about it, with Maya Nakashima being back. I think he was working on Drew before I stepped down from leadership. So this was a long time coming, like a super long time coming. And
so
I couldn't have guessed it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, I couldn't have guessed it.
Yeah, me neither. So I remember Josh in the admin channel saying, "Man, if I score who I think I'm about to score, I'm going to be super happy." And then I was like talking about who I'm going to pester to get back and bring back in the shoot. I think I said something about might have been Scotty, and he was like, "Oh, it was Scotty that I just got." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he completely swerved me. So I'm reading the show, and me and my Charlie in the mailroom stuff with the new Vanguard and figuring out who and what's going on, completely I start hearing like they start reading about like the guitar riff and well, what the hell? Then I see um the
The,
name of the song. I'm like, holy shit,
yeah,
this is
it's,
Maya Nakashima. It caught me by complete surprise. It was perfect, and I'm really interested to see how this plays out going forward.
yeah. That's one thing I love about having the text still with the shows, is being able to get that hype sense from knowing what song it is. You know, because I feel like I'm
Yeah,
actually in the
exactly.
arena. Hey, look at that! That's Ref Clark Feldman. We just saw you ref a match. How you doing, bud? It's good to see you. But when you see Horizon, you just lose your mind, and I really did. When it says the crowd goes berserk, you definitely go berserk in your chair for Drew, for Maya Nakashima itself, but also because it's Drew. And Drew's one of those people that you just love to have in the fold, I suppose. So it was kind of a double whammy
Oh,
there.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With Drew, I can remember when we were doing written matches still. Um, he would send the most detailed strat out of anybody I've ever gotten. It would have like links to YouTube videos of what the moves he wants to use look like that. And he'd always send me a little love note with it that said, "Use this strat, you son of a bitch," and I would respond in kind, say, "Yeah, fuck you and your strat." But for Drew is hands down probably one of the top five guys that I never wanted to fuck with competitively in this game,
Yeah. There.
and I am stoked to have him back.
My favorite memories of Drew are our Iron Fist championship matches that we went back and forth with. That was, now that Iron Fist is back. So there's a lot of stuff we could talk about. We could have an entire show based about Drew and Drew's awesomeness, of course. But the fact that Maya
Yeah,
Nakashima is back is spectacular. Uh, the little engine that could, he was always there. Yesterday,
yeah, and
yesterday they were talking about, um, I forget what his partner's name was, but how he had passed away and things like
Shinya.
this. Shinya, yes. And part of me wants to say that there was a role play or a character development where Shinya came back and saw Maya with the championship and just kind of like walked away from everything. I can't remember if
I
that's the
kind
case
of
or not.
I kind of remember that. I also know that I think in the EWA for a little bit, Drew came over and I think he was running. I don't know if it was experimental for him, but I think he was running Shinya as a heel, kind of coming back similar, like the opposite path of what Maya took. But I can't say that for 100%. That'd be something to
Interesting.
answer.
I wonder if that's going to get
But
retconned or
for maybe you never know, and it would be
yeah,
interesting to see Trevian back together.
it would be.
Um, that would be something, especially with the way the tag team division is now. Um, but I do want to talk about the new Vanguard just for a second
Of
because
course.
they are sprinkled throughout this show. Um, this angle is, aside from anything that I'm involved in because I have to be invested in it, it's probably the thing that I'm invested in shoot. To the point where in the admin channel, like B, Eddie, and Josh are careful what they say about it because I don't want to be spoiled. Um, I will say that Corazon being the big bad on awesome. Um, I kind of accidentally made Scion part of it because I was pestering Josh with the, and that was one of them. Um, but I'm still working out Avarice. I'm still working out. But the other two, clearly Malice is Trey Willett's kid, or somehow related, and we obviously know Scion, real deal, or is he? Bum bum bum.
Bum, bum, bum.
But the way this has come together has been great because I go back and read things. Everybody knows I'm Shoot Project 3 now. But seeing how everything's developed, where Malice and Avarice Wood came in randomly, these three characters kind of did just separate things and now have come together, but they're both separate and apart, or separate and together at the same time almost, because they join together when they need to, but it's like they still do their own thing, and when Corazon calls, that's when they kind of band together. So it's really interesting to see that and it's such a strange dynamic. It's a different type of stable than I've seen in Project. They're not
Yeah,
always together, and I think that what makes them stand out so much.
yeah. I think they all having them all having their own personalities is, and like not just different personalities, but extremely on the opposite side of the spectrums, like personalities is really cool. And like you were saying, it's not something you see before. So I think you're right.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because you have that avarice who's like almost pleasant all the time, except for when he's not. There's always this underlying malice. You have Sion that even though now he's a little bit darker because he's following Warzone, he's still basically got that same cocky TJ OMD kind of attitude about him, and he's like the young brash one. And then you have Malice, that's so just pure rage and anger, and then you have Void, who is almost Void reminds me so much of Intragian with the way he speaks, his speech patterns, his general demeanor and attitude. But it's almost too obvious to be.
So I have my ideas of who Void could be, but I don't know if it's correct. So I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to be proven wrong. I just want to.
Fair enough. I'll keep Charlie in the mailroom, until I figure it out. But
Yeah.
but that's definitely a great opening segment into a great opening match. And with Avarice being the voice of Corazon, it made a lot of sense to start things and transition to that match. Fantastic finish, amazing post match, ties everything up to move forward into almost the next phase of this angle. So now
Mm-hmm.
you have kind of Real Deal, Jonas Coleman, and Maya, and it almost feels like there's going to be something more to come to help this. But this thing's setting up to be a massive good angle.
And I'm wondering where Maya goes from here, and like what everything happens with Maya. You know what happens next with Maya too. Just because does Real Deal now step back and now Maya takes his place in this kind of with Jonas? You know what I mean? Or what
Yeah,
exactly
I mean, there's a
happens?
lot that can happen. I don't know if
Yeah.
Real Deal takes a step back or if Real Deal kind of, um, Josh has said repeatedly, never going to deal authority again. Well, maybe the face authority is to go with this and try to build something up against. I think in one of the promos, Real Deal specifically says that, or maybe it was in segment, he said Corazon was his biggest mistake. So
Yeah.
I think Real Deal is going to be at some point active in that.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying. Where Real Deal has to put him down, that sort of thing. So yeah, that again, I feel like with how invested everybody is into this storyline, we could spend hours upon hours talking about this. Um, but we should probably move forward with the Sin City Championship match because it's the goddamn Sin City Championship match that I think both of us have a really soft spot for in our hearts.
Yes, Sin City Championship is near and dear to my heart. Spoiler alert: there are only two individuals who have ever held the Sin City Championship in any incarnation 3 times, and that is Jester Smiles and Laura Seaton. I have the chance to do it, but we'll get to that later. But so definitely an important title in Shoot Project history, and these two, Void, who we were just speaking about, and Nemesis are kind of the newest generation of fighting for it, which I think is great. Um, I don't know who Void's parentage is, but we know Nemesis is Azrath Dimitri's kid, who is a multiple time holder of the same title.
Yeah, the Sin City Championship is near and dear to my heart because it's the one that I feel like kind of elevated Stein to where he is right now. You know, so when people when this belt gets defended or has a feud going, it's one that I get invested in really quick because I know what it can do for people, and I know what it's doing for Judy E. You know, and for Void. So I'm really stoked for this match, and I was really stoked for this match during Revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the match itself almost, and again, Fire Pro does this so well on um, it was almost, it felt like a continuation of their draw that they had at one Revolution,
Yeah,
and it worked because and Void's kind of promos leading up to it, where he's saying that like I had you know it, and I know, and that really kind of shown in this match. Like Void is this presence in the match itself that is not going to be denied. It comes off as you're not taking, you're gonna have to kill me to take this thing, and that's kind of how it played out.
yeah. With the everything that happens in the match, and again, it's a Rev Clark Feldman sighting. So there you go for your for Rev Clark in the chat here.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
it's one of those matches that you can see their history being built up inside of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like that because I think they mentioned this on Shots in the Dark. I think this is something where, regardless of who has the title or where it goes, this is a feud that can go for a while because the whole dynamic of Void inserting himself into the Dimitri family, even going so far to call himself Thomas, started calling himself Thomas Dimitri, cut himself off. Like and he mentions it again, where he's acknowledging that he's not Azrate's kid for real, but he's making himself a part of this family. That is
Yeah.
such a cool dynamic where sometimes you see in feuds like this where it's just the bad guy's going to go after the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he's almost coming off as protective of the family. He's coming off or part of this, but it's in this twisted way, and the dynamic between Az and Ruby already is such a broken home that's like holding itself together by threads, that this is just a really great way to kind of continue this feud, with the Sin City Championship being involved in it. I don't know if Josh has plans on bringing back the Sin City series, but that'd be a great to carry even through something like that.
Yeah, that'd be with the pods and everything like that. That'd be sick. I know that there were discussions, rumblings of that, I suppose, in the past. But yeah, I could see that being something that's brought back in this case, especially with everybody that's coming in and all the new people that we'll get to later on in the show. So I'm sure it is. And then,
Yeah, absolutely.
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so I noticed in this match just a couple minutes ago there was Void just choking the life out of Nemesis. You could see that, like, even if he wasn't doing it with he has the mask on, but you could tell that it wasn't like a malicious. How do I do it? Just like something that he does. I guess I'm trying to say. I think that's really cool that Fire Pro did that too.
Yeah, I see things like that with the characters, and
Mm-hmm.
again, I kind of have to give a lot of credit to Fire Pro as itself because it kind of takes the stories that we write and it takes the pieces that we're putting together and it just delivers every time. So in this case with Void, you can see that he doesn't not coming at her in a malicious, devious way. It's just kind of like you said, it's what he does.
Yep.
Um, and of course he's having none of it. But just the fact that his Void submission finisher is this kind of I'm going to choke you and swing you around until you can't take it anymore is just fantastic.
Yeah, and all the submission moves that both of these people do, and the actual wrestling, and it's the feud itself. It can go on forever, and if it did, I don't think that anybody would be upset about it.
No, and it's also a credit to the Judy character too because I've I started Judy really on Shut Up and Fight, and she moved to Revolution, and she's kind of the character is evolving, and she's kind of almost morphing into a kind of mini version of Azrael with her temper and the way that she has this like inner monster but she's handling it better in some respects. In some respects, she's not. And this, I think, Void is a big test for her and her personality to go into this. Ben writes this character so well, and multiple times the term the character feels so lived in that it works so well and it translates very well over to Fire Pro for the matches.
Yeah, and imagine your first feud on the big show being Void. Like,
Exactly. Right. And thankfully, Ben's a veteran. He's been at this for a while. So he knows how to write and they know how to carry it together. So I think this will come really well.
yeah. So then, I feel like there's still about 2.5 minutes left on the match, but I think we're gonna move forward a little bit here while we're talking about the next match coming up, which is of course the singles match, kind of the grudge match between Dan Stein and Excalibur. Let's see here. Well, Nemesis takes the win, of course. Sorry, not Nemesis. Sorry,
Or
Void.
Void, yeah.
I was looking at the writing. So Void takes the
No, you're
takes the
good.
win, and then yeah, I mean, like, does Judy just stop? No, like, there's no stopping Judy in this case, right?
No, I don't think she stops at all. I think this is a case where she picks herself back up. She finds a way to push forward, and she continues on with her goal.
Yeah, and we're doing the championship kind of. Night of Champions, I suppose, at 150. And it'd be something that would be interesting if there's a way that she can get shoehorned or something like that into the match.
Well, I mean,
take
she
it from
has
there.
an opportunity. She definitely has an opportunity at it going, at 149. She's in the contendership battle royal, so we'll see if she can pull that out.
Yeah, yeah, we'll pull up the bookings on that one too. All right. So then we move on to the Excalibur Dan Stein match, and this match was fun for me as Dan Stein's handler. What about for you?
Yeah, I think the match was great. It was definitely fun. Hang tight 1 second. Dogs are being jerks again.
Oh yeah, Bonnie Blue. Bonnie Blue comes out. Then
Yeah, so um, I think this match was fun. It was definitely something that I followed because this was like, out of everything that's going on right now, this was kind of the most old school style feud, and that's something I'm a fan of. I feel like, I don't know, something in, we're straight shooting here tonight, folks. There was something missing for me in this whole thing. And I don't think it was anything to do with the writing. I don't think it was anything to do with, anything that was any promos or segments. I think I maybe just wanted more because it was almost like the way it started off with a bang at Redemption with Stein's people having kind of a botched kind of thing, what they were supposed to do.
yeah,
And then X just goes on this wild tear, like hunting season for Dan Stein, but it was almost like something was just lost in translation between Stein kind of poking at X and then X just almost no selling it and saying that, hey, I'm Excalibur, motherfucker, and I'm gonna destroy you.
yeah.
I feel like there could have been a little bit more back and forth between the two throughout the whole feud to kind of bring it to a boiling point. But it didn't take away from it so much to where I didn't enjoy it.
Sure. I just want to say that emptiness that you feel is 100% my fault because I kind of got sidetracked with real life stuff and I didn't put enough into the feud as I should have because MJ was always wanting to do stuff and I couldn't find the time to do it, or he was doing things, writing promos, things like that, and I wasn't uh, wasn't not equalizing, but what's the word I'm thinking of? Kind of matching what he was.
Reciprocating. Is
Yeah,
that the word you're
exactly.
looking for?
Yeah, reciprocating. I wasn't
I
reciprocating
can
what he
see
was
that.
doing. So like that was definitely 100% of my fault and nothing that MJ was doing. So so this whole
Yeah, no, and I don't think it was any. I didn't think it was anything with the work. I think
yeah,
the absence of Stein sometimes. I think that's what kind of made it seem that way. But overall, I thought
yeah,
it was a strong feud in the fact that it was this old school kind of revenge type feud,
yeah.
and the match itself was great. I loved Bonnie Blue getting her kind of intro this way, and Loco getting his return. That was huge.
Yeah. I
The
stopped
only
the
thing I'll say about that.
go ahead.
Oh, you stopped the video?
I stopped the video because I wanted to talk about that, but go ahead because I feel like you're going to.
Yeah. I think we have maybe a similar idea with what's happening here. So it's great to hear the music and see these characters come out. But for example, if I come in the shoot project and I don't know what the character, and maybe I know who the characters are, but I don't know what they look like in Fire Pro yet because I haven't. For example, I had no idea that was Loco Martinez until the little graphic showed up that said it was Loco.
Sure.
Um, I think that just the entrance itself could have been written
Yes.
to kind of play that up and play up the big return. Like Maya had that big moment. I think it would have been a much bigger moment to have that intro with Loco coming out as the second mystery kind of lumberjack. That could have been such a bigger moment, but it's still a huge moment when you see that graphic come up in the video and it says Loco Martinez. You're like, oh, holy shit, that's Loco Martinez.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say that. I was also gonna say having this second return of the night. You apparently knew that it was coming, but I don't think that anybody else did, of course. Especially because earlier in the night, even I think Scott was saying, "Stop tagging me and shoot stuff. I'm not coming back," and getting kind of salty about it. So Scott played that off so well. Scott did that incredible.
Well, I knew Scott was coming back in some capacity. I had no idea it was going to be on the show.
Okay.
I knew he was coming back, and I knew because Josh had swerved me with saying he had gotten Scott when he had actually gotten Drew. Um, so it was kind of part swerve for me and part kind of like I knew he was coming back in some capacity to do something, but I didn't know this is what it was. And it'll be interesting to see how this progresses forward. I don't know if Stein X keeps going. I think the smart money is to do some kind of follow up to it with Stein getting to win, especially it being kind of an old style feud. But with the rest of Make Championships Great Again getting demoted down to Resistance or Reign, whichever one it was. I don't know if that's something to do, but also it's interesting to see if maybe Stein and Loco kindle something up because I'd buy that for $1.
I would love to work with Scott again, and I kind of in my promo that I just posted earlier today, I kind of mentioned something along those lines too, just kind of like stirring the pot. So yeah, I would definitely be down for that. I'd also be down for staying with doing some Excalibur stuff because I do feel like I'm gonna be back and be around more often than I was before. So if MJ wants to do it, that's awesome. If he feels like he needs to move on to something else, which it's may be the case, then it's the case. It's my fault that I wasn't around very much, and I understand maybe wanting to work with other people that you'd feel like are gonna be around more often, and not even like being rude or upset or anything like that. It's just the way that e-fetting is, right? You just want to be with people that reciprocate. So
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
again, I could see it going either way.
yeah,
I think the match itself played really well. One thing that I noticed about X in Fire Pro, and this is nobody's fault. This is something the game does, right? X has this tendency to repeat moves a lot. So, and it's not
yeah,
always the same move. If you watch multiple X matches, it's never the same move. Like I think this one was like the Tiger Driver he hit like 8
Yeah.
times.
So many times.
But like other matches, it's sometimes he just goes submission, 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 and sometimes it's the same one. So I don't know if it's a logic issue or if it's something that Fire Pro is picking up. But it's always a different move every match, and it seems like maybe it's like if in character you can kind of transition it to like I like the X going, damn it, this is my ball game, this is my strategy. I'm coming in, and if this doesn't work, I have nothing else. So I'm gonna keep going back to it, and eventually I'm gonna put this guy away. And in this match, you can almost argue that that was his downfall, and that's maybe how Stein got his victory because X went to the well one too many times, things like that.
Yeah. And the fact that Stein got busted open right away, and they touched on it last night, of course. We're going to say that about basically everything we say, I think, but being busted open right away just kind of put that big fight feel into Stein again, I think. And that's kind of what I was looking at this entire match was the big fight feel that Stein was getting out of this. You know, he wasn't kind of being
his self-absorbed kind of self. Like
exactly.
he came to fight.
Exactly.
And I like that about that's one of the things I like about the Dan Stein character. He's this super self-absorbed, arrogant as hell douchebag heel. But when he's cornered, Stein is extremely dangerous. And people forget that until it's too late.
Yeah, it's something that Dan Stein is everything I love about wrestling, and Dan Stein would be my favorite wrestler in real life. So I'm glad that it's coming across.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
My favorite Dan Stein moments always involve Capri Suns because I always thought it was the hilarious thing ever to see all of the stuff going on, and then the description of Dan Stein sitting there sipping a Capri Sun. That's been my favorite thing about Stein, like always. That's like my. If you had to pick like a classic version of a character for Dan Stein, it would be sitting there. Someone falls through, some like party girl falls through a glass table, and he's standing there, the championship around his waist, sipping a Capri Sun.
Yes, I remember that now. I definitely understand that now. Yeah, I remember that promo. That was hilarious.
I mean, we all know MJ created Dan Stein, so it doesn't really matter at this point.
Well, I mean, there's no way that MJ was losing this match in that case.
Yeah, I mean, MJ wins every.
MJ just invented winning.
Yeah, he created winning. Yeah.
Winning. Yeah.
But no, overall, I thought this was a great match. It was a good match, also with Stein getting busted open because, surprisingly, in a crazy fashion, this got talked to a lot last night as well. Like there wasn't as much blood as I thought there was going to be on the show.
Right.
I thought that if Josh had that mod on for the canvas, I thought that thing was going to be just a complete sheet of red by the time the show was done. And that just wasn't the case. I mean, we'll get to it later, but the main event painted it up pretty good, but I just thought it was going to be a lot worse. So Stein, this being one of the few matches that actually had blood in it, I thought was a big deal too, considering this was a grudge match.
Yeah. And
it was the only grudge match without a super violent stipulation too.
Exactly. And we still ended up having the blood over the 1/3 of the mat, whatever. So, yeah. Even though Excalibur didn't win, excuse me, he did bust open Dan Stein and cause Dan Stein to have a gash over his eye. So I'll be playing that up, and I think that that's a win for Excalibur is having that bust open. You know, so I feel like this match kind of ended the way it made both people happy in a sense, because now Excalibur could come out talking about the scar that's going to be on Dan Stein because of what he did in this match, which I'm definitely going to play up. I feel like Excalibur is well worthy of having left a scar on Dan Stein, you know what I mean? And he did.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see how Excalibur as a character kind of rebounds from this, because this was kind of hunting Dan Stein, and he got his pound of flesh, so to speak. But at the same time, he lost the match. So how is this going to affect X, and how is he going down from this going forward.
Absolutely. The one thing is uh, being being who Excalibur is. I don't see the win or sorry the loss affecting him at all. You know, I feel like he's still going to be Excalibur. I feel like that's the same thing. So
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue. It's just going to be interesting to see, where he goes with the
yeah,
character in this. Um, and I assume you have the show up in front of you, so I'm not sure what's next because I'm on my phone.
gotcha.
Um, so if you want to take us to the next one, but yeah, overall, this match was solid. I think it was um, a great match to have on the card. Where on a card there were so many different violent stipulations. But this one, the stipulation was two lumberjacks per side, and I love the little post match blurb where it talks about why do you think the lumberjacks didn't get involved, and we talk about probably COVID. I thought that was a nice little touch to kind of explain what was going on and really acknowledge what's going on.
Yeah. So the next segment, and I'm having a brain fart moment because that's just what happens with me. Is I believe it's CJ.
Oh yeah, it's the first. It's the little um, kind of almost intermission like segment where it's kind of hyping the main event and
Yes.
prayer and CJH. I am a huge fan of this character. I think that this character is fantastic, and the way she comes off is so great, um, and creepy, like super
Yeah.
creepy. I get kind of the Nero, Cape Fear vibe from her.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, I do. I get that vibe from her, but she is just this. And it was talked about a lot last night, but I feel like Charlie J. Hitch is a character that you could insert her into a feud with any face or any heel on the roster, and she could either be the face or she could be the heel. And I think that's a testament to the fact that what Eddie and Dee have done with this feud. And I think this was a great selling point for the main event. And kind of foreshadows things a little bit if you really read into what she's saying.
Yeah. So the next match is going to be CK Butcher versus Nate Robideau.
Okay. So I want to talk about this one.
Yeah,
Because there was some talk about this match flying under the radar, this feud kind of flying under the radar, and I know Ben too has a little bit, of a confidence issue with, the feuds and things like that. This was never on the radar for me. I like both of these characters very much. Like I know Nate wasn't like a main for Eddie, but this character to me is one of my favorites because he's a very straightforward, no nonsense type character. But he does have that tragic past that he's big and used in a feud like this. And CK is just fantastic from the gate. Um, I think this feud is fantastic. The last man standing stipulation was cool because it's almost like an Iron Fist match,
yeah.
which could propel either one of these individuals into an Iron Fist. Did I lose you, Greg?
No, I think I might have lost you for a second there
Oh, okay.
because you said that you think it'll propel them into, and then it kind of like
Oh, okay. I think it could propel either one or both of them into like the Iron Fist division that's coming back. Um,
yeah. Could you imagine?
because
CK
the
Butcher in
match
that?
type, yeah. I mean, CK right now, he's going for the world championship because he's got the, redemption
Yeah.
Rumble win. But for Nate could easily move to that because this match was essentially an Iron Fist match. The only difference was there had to be a pinfall before the 10 count. So this was essentially like almost a return of the Iron Fist stipulation, um, which I thought was fantastic. And the fact that these guys went out there and after all the shit that CK has put Nate Robideau through, and Nate has been this kind of stoic, no nonsense. You could almost feel the tension boiling with them, building and building and building to where this was the only type of match that was going to settle it. A cage match probably wouldn't have worked because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
A death match, man, maybe. But the fact that because of the style that Nate has and even the style that CK Butcher has, I feel like this was the only type of match that was going to settle this, and I think it worked.
Yeah, and I just love powerhouse hosses going back and forth on each other, especially in Fire Pro. So this was entertaining as fuck to watch too.
It really was, and the first interaction between these two, you got to remember, Nate Robideau dominated that first match, and Dogshank. I can't remember if he criticaled him or if he won by submission, but Nate Robideau won the first encounter on these guys, and he dominated the shit out of CK Butcher in that match. It was a main event of Revolution. So this match, is almost CK Butcher, the way he reacted to that and came back and essentially tortured Nate mentally, to the point where Nate came out in this match, and now we have this last man standing, and I love the way it finished. Ben kind of mentioned it, I think, in the Discord during the show, that CK was kind of up and doing the kind of dazed thing when the 10 count happened.
Yeah.
Or when the final count happened, rather. And I love the fact that because CK Butcher has really nothing to lose losing this match, because he's contending for the World Heavyweight Championship at Reckoning Day, win or lose here. Even in the respect that Nate wins and he needed this win, CK is almost like Rocky, right? Where they both kind of pull themselves up, and Apollo Creed just at the last second he falls, and that's how Rocky wins. I got the same kind of moment here, except instead of CK falling, he gets up, and I almost envisioned the referee looking at him going, "Hey, are you okay?" and just seeing that the lights are on but nobody's home and calling the match.
Yeah, and that's something that CK can say, is that he never tapped or whatever. CK never tapped.
Yeah, and he can say, like, in promos, like, going forward, like, I was clearly on my feet. He wanted to go that route. He could do that, but he could also feed into it and say, I've been out on my feet before, and this is something that happened. Nate Robideau won the match, but he didn't beat me. He couldn't keep me down.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what I think should happen, and definitely is a good way to sell the match itself.
Yeah, you sell the match, and that's how you also propel yourself into this World Championship that you now have, because you're in the main event at Reckoning Day already. You know that. Everybody knows that already because you're the Redemption Rumble winner. You had a strong showing in this match, and even by losing, you now have this piece to say, hey, without spoiling the main event yet, hey, world champion, guess what? You saw that even though Nate Robideau won a match, he couldn't keep me down with me. He has that ability to say that now and kind of transition that and say it, of course, in his own way. Yeah. But the way CK Butcher's, and Ben 2's writing, the way the descriptions are, he's better at it than I am. And I consider myself pretty good at descriptive writing. But the way he sets descriptions and the way CK Butcher speaks, he has a really good way to kind of formulate that and project himself forward, to take nothing away from.
Oh, you kind of cut out there again, I think. Yeah, I think you're cut out.
Here, am I on?
There you go. Now you are. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's this feud has been going on for so long that you're right. Like, hey, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Technical difficulties.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Greg, I can't hear you.
Hold on. You can't hear me? You're muted right now. Just to let you know. Gonna try and let him know what's going on.
Wait, hold on. I think I just got you. Are you
Can you
there?
hear me back? Yep. Can you hear me?
There we go. Now I can hear you.
Okay,
I
cool.
don't know what happened there.
Yeah, it was weird. It happens.
Yeah.
Production and such.
Hey, we made it. We made it a little bit before we had a production.
Yeah, made about an hour. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, what I was saying with Nate, I happen to know what's next for that I won't spoil anything, or just because I have conversations with Eddie about stuff all the time because I bother the shit out of him all the time. But Nate is in a position to really go anywhere. Big win like because now he has a win contender.
yeah. And that's, I mean, what better to have than a victory over their one contender? You know, like that's the biggest one that you could do. So.
Yeah, I mean, aside from winning the title itself, I mean that's really the biggest thing. Like that's a big brag.
Especially the way that he won it, where he did knock him out on his feet.
Yeah, and I'm sure his compatriots in this unholy cyber army will be very happy about that type of stuff.
And let's see real quick. The next one, there's not really a segment here. It's just kind of like the follow up to the match. But overall, that match was, if I had to give it stars, if I'm Dave Meltzer for a moment, I would say that's a 5 out of 5 match, just because I like the big hosses fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the matches on this card were like that, and I refuse to give in to the Meltzer rating. I'm probably one of the people that are like a holdout from that. I hate that star rating system.
Yeah, me too.
He never gives a criteria for it. But
Tokyo Dome gives an extra 5 stars.
You just have to be Nick or Matt Jackson, or Kenny. But ultimately, one of the things I did want to mention is a lot of these little blurbs between matches. They weren't full-on segments, but I love the use of that. And I don't know if that's something Josh put in or if the handlers were sending those in. But those were fantastic because it really helps with the flow of the show and keeps the continuity.
Yeah, it's rather than going from match to match, there's a breakup between it, so you kind of have a moment to take a breath.
Yeah, exactly. I think it gives a.
Oh, Josh.
I think it gives a nice little aesthetic to it.
Yeah, and touching back on what you had stated about the first Nate Robideau and CK Butcher match, it was a critical that ended the match. So,
I thought it was. I remember him being dominant, and I just couldn't remember if it was a critical or not.
Yeah, it definitely was a critical. So, the next one being the other grudge match in the show, Azra Dimitri versus Jacob Mephisto.
Yes, a match that, in complete shock and surprise, had no blood. A cage match, to be exact. One thing I will mention about this, and I'm actually glad I didn't get this in. I had planned originally, and I dropped the ball on this, to write an intro where Mephisto comes to the ring and Az attacks him with the crowbar on the way to. I would have been a cool little thing to put in there, but I'm glad it didn't because the way the Fire Pro match panned out, it didn't have any blood at all.
So there wasn't a
Hold on a
place
second.
for
My
it.
wife has tater tots and pickles, and I'm in.
I don't blame you.
Give me a tater tot. Let me get a tot.
Get a tot. Let's get your tots. Press 1 in chat if you like tots. Speaking of which, if you're new here and you haven't followed, go ahead and follow the Shoot Project channel. We need to get up to 50 followers so that we can go ahead and get affiliated. Tots and pickles, yeah? Tots and picks. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and follow.
Tots and pickles. If you like tots and pickles,
Go ahead and follow.
I want you to go ahead and subscribe.
Yeah. Well, we can't subscribe yet. That's what we're trying to get to.
Or follow, whatever the cool hip lingo is for Twitch.
Go ahead and leave a follow. It's totally free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out the stream. All right. So going back to the cage match. What were you saying?
So again, I was writing the intro for it, and then I kind of dropped the ball on it, and I didn't know the show was going up a day early. And Josh was like, "Sorry, dude, I posted the show because I got excited." I said, "That's no worry. It wasn't something that was important to me." the match itself was fantastic. It's crazy because there were so many cool weapons that didn't really get used, and the fact that there was no blood. But I also love the fact that blood because this kind of turned into something where it was just these two guys just trying. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit about the stuff because it was something I was obviously heavily invested in.
Yeah, Azra Dimitri was my first favorite character ever because I've been with Ben since I was 11 years old playing this game, and Azra Dimitri was the first character that like I really enjoyed reading and such. So I've always been invested in everything that Ben does. And then when you came back and immediately, I feel like it was immediately that you jumped into the program with Ben. It was it was like the best thing in the world because you two guys, you are very descriptive, like you were saying before, and Ben is just I don't know how to explain it. He's just my favorite all around writer. Like I could just write I could read anything that man writes and be yeah. Like I'm a huge Ben nerd. I'm a Ben 2 nerd too, I guess, but I'm a huge Ben nerd. So this match itself, with what you were saying about how there's no blood in this match, like there didn't need to be blood in this match. The cage itself, I don't even know if that was necessary, but I definitely understand why it was. The weapons, I definitely understand. Yes, those were necessary, but everything that was going on was fantastic. Um, the in your promo that you put up today, we'll touch a little bit. I appreciated the selling of the end of it, where you're like not again, so on and so forth. Uh, it's
Yes, there was definitely a point to that, and I thought that was something that was super. So when Mephisto lost the Sin City Championship, I can't remember. I don't know if it's the exact same move, but it's a very similar style pinning combination that Judy put on him to win the belt, and then as after hitting that big choke slam, um, pins him with the same thing. So I thought that was very poetic, and I had to acknowledge it. I think you're absolutely correct, and I have to give Josh 1,000,000% props for this starting because when I came back and I asked Josh, I was like, I don't know really who's all around or who's running what characters. Who do you think Mephisto would work with? And he said, I'd be here for a Mephisto Azri.
yeah,
So I was like, sold. And because I kind of knew who the Azraith character, because again, I'm a nerd and I go back and I read all this stuff. But I reached out to Ben. Ben was all for it, and we kind of talked about what the feud would be. And one of the things we intentionally did was keep Judy out of it, because this was between Mephisto and Azraith. If anybody knows anything about the Mephisto character before, he's not the type to go after family. He will break you down as much as he can, and he will get inside your head and just fuck with you. But he won't go after. He doesn't go after the family and shit like that. So the fact that she was brought into it from a competition standpoint, I thought was great. This feud was about Mephisto finally biting off more than he could chew. So he did the whole thing I did with Maya. I did the whole thing I did with Sammy Rochester when Eric was running him. Did the Sin City Championship Series. Did a little mini program with Crippler. But Mephisto's found a way to either come out on top or come out relatively unscathed from it. This was about Mephisto digging in and provoking the wrong motherfucker. And knowing that he did. And then at the end of it, resigning himself to now he's going to have to. That's what this feud was about. Mephisto drawing out the beast in Dimitri, but Dimitri kind of warning him repeatedly, you don't know what you're bringing out.
yeah.
And Mephisto basically saying, yes, I do. I'm not afraid of you. And then realizing that, holy shit, I bit off more than I could chew. That was what this feud was about.
Holy shit! I am
And I
afraid of you.
think it translated well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the match kind of showed that same kind of story where it felt like most of Mephisto's matches is very methodical. It almost watching it, like he felt desperate. And I liked that.
Yeah, this match cage match. It was a weapons match. It was. I think it's going to be the ending of the feud, and it was a great match to end the feud with. Because it was very very violent but not bloody, which was like they were saying yesterday, just beating each other up and just being done with it.
Yeah, that was definitely the blow off. It was a good blow off. I didn't want to do a post match segment for it because I wanted it to. That's why I did it in like kind of the role play.
It was fun.
I wanted it to be definitive, like this thing's over. I think
Mhm.
if anything, we were maybe going to do something where Az kind of did exactly what I showed in the promo. He just kind of walked away. And
Yeah.
Mephisto just watched him. There was something else that was supposed to kind of be in the works, but the handler that was supposed to do it, I don't know if he's going to do it or if he's just saving it for later because it was one of his kind of term coming in. What I want him to. Otherwise, I'm just pestering the shit out of him.
Another
Spoiler alert! I won't tell you what character it is, but spoiler alert: the handler is
the handler's who? You cut out again.
Dan Warren.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, he has a million characters, but I won't spoil which character he's playing.
Well, that's
But
that's a spoiler in its own right, and I think that's pretty awesome.
yeah, I mean, I don't think. Again, I don't know if he is coming back. I really hope he does. And Dan, if you listen to this, I'm going to pepper your inbox repeatedly until you come back and play our stupid nerdy game with us.
Yep. Yeah.
And
'cause
if I
Dan's
have
my
to
boy.
start going to the memes, I will go.
Dan's my boy. I love Dan and his green sky.
I mean,
and
it's
blue
cool.
earth.
Dan can come back, quit for 2 weeks, not tell anybody, and come back with it by time for the show. I'm okay with that.
Oh man, he'll never live that down. I love him. I love
Not
that
with
guy.
me. No, but Dan's cool people.
Dan is cool people. Dan's great people actually. Man,
Yes.
what a champ.
But yeah, the match again. The match played out perfectly. The feud was probably one of my favorite things that I've done. Only second to kind of the Sin City Championship Series with me because that was kind of what put me on the Map and Shoot project, and I just never got to finish what I had going with Drew. But this feud was great. Ben was a champ. He was so easy to work with that I would literally just write something. He would I would say, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" And he'd say, "Yeah, let's do it." And I would write something and send it to him, make some minor tweaks or add his stuff in, and then send it back, or like vice versa. And it was just the smoothest kind of transition to get these things done. Google Docs is the greatest thing ever.
Google Docs is amazing. If we had
yeah,
Google
and
Docs when
this-
I was 11
this
years
feud-
old, that I don't know what I would have done to myself. Like it's incredible. It is incredible. I'm glad that you had that feud with them. That is one of my favorite Azrath feuds, especially because it's the new iteration of Shoot Project, and it's probably my favorite feud so far in Shoot Project. Just because, again, I'm a Ben nerd. I'm a sucker for Ben. So
Yeah, I mean, I read some of Azrake's stuff, and I didn't realize that the whole thing that Kenji used to talk about with Kenji's kid dying and
Yep.
everything, I didn't know until like recently that was Azrake that did that.
yeah,
During this feud is when I kind of found that out, which I thought was super cool because it kind of added a layer to Mephisto not understanding fully what he's getting in. And like the whole feud started off with a simple sentence: "Didn't you used to be Azrath?" Which I actually kind of stole from, of all places, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You know, the scene, if you've ever seen that movie, the scene where he comes in and goes, "Didn't you used to be Eddie Valiant?"
used to be.
Yeah, that's literally where I pilfered that line from.
Yep. Oh man, it was a good feud, and it did exactly what you guys wanted to do. I feel like, so I know that he came out on the losing side of this, but I don't feel like anything is lost in Mephisto. In fact, there's a lot to be gained from
Yeah,
this, right?
this feud, even with Mephisto losing, Mephisto is the type of character, especially in a non-competitive environment like this, where he can lose matches like this because of the way the concept and the context of the he can lose matches like this because in losing he feels like he won because now even though he knows Azraith's going to keep trying to reel this monster that he is in, and he has this fractured relationship with Judy, daughter, it's he knows that Azraith can't keep it bottled up because it took a single sentence and a little bit of prodding to unleash it, and he feels like he's unleashed this thing on Street Project.
Yeah. And I'm
And
circling this and I'm pointing this out on the stream, but the match itself got 100% on Fire Pro,
which is fantastic.
which is obviously the best it could get. That's awesome. It was definitely one of the. It was probably the match of the night for me. It was the match of the night for me, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, from a selfish perspective, I would say that as well. But there's one other match that I think we haven't gotten to yet, that I'm going to probably give that to for the story behind.
The next segment is the collective and
Yes,
another return.
that I am involved in.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So the collective, I have, and I say this with some bias as well as with some objectivity, because I am two characters out of them. I am Andromeda Flynn, and I run Sammy Rocha, who I inherited from Eric Mann, who basically has told me that he is kind of done with e-fetting, but I can have Sammy and write him to my heart's content. I love Sammy Rochester, why I wanted to run him so bad. And Andromeda Flynn is kind of my new character, who I'm still feeling out. I love the idea of the collective. The only thing I'll say about the collective that's not really a negative even, I feel like this came together so fast that it could have had a bigger impact overall if you had maybe Arthur Pleasant and Milton establish themselves as a unit a little bit more and get Arthur over a little bit more and then kind of start pulling together these other members. Because Arthur's still relatively new, and a lot of people, if you look at the Shoot Project universe, really, if you look at it in a character perspective and the fans, he's still a relatively new character that hasn't really won any.
Right.
He's just carrying around the Iron Fist Championship, which is a beautiful touch. I love that he calls himself the greatest Iron Fist champion that ever lived.
Yes. I don't. How did he get the belt in the first place? I missed that. I'm sorry. I don't know.
So, my understanding is that either Milton, which is the Sean Bowden character reinvented, and or Addie Ainsworth had it stolen. Like somebody jacked it from the Hall of Fame, where the titles are known to be.
Sure.
And they went and kind of retrieved it for Arthur. So Arthur obviously hasn't won it, but he's parading it around. And the idea, and I think I don't know if I came up with the idea or just maybe planted the seeds for MJ to do it. But the segment where they're destroying people, and now they're giving the count, they're basically giving a 10 count and declaring Arthur Pleasant the winner. That's why he calls himself undefeated, because as they destroy somebody, when we have a reveal, they do the 10 count. And then he raises his hand and still the Iron Fist champion, greatest one that ever lived. Which is a great touch to the character and to the group. I just think the group could have come together at a little bit more of a leisurely pace, allowing the central person, because the central character in this group is Arthur Pleasant. There could be no question about that. This is his collective. Mm-hmm. Addie Ainsworth is a wild card. Milton is like the brains on. He's very cerebral with everything. Andromeda Flynn just wants to fight somebody and wants opportunity and feels like she wasn't getting the opportunity. So Arthur Pleasant's her way in. And Sammy Rochester is the force of nature. He's a nuclear weapon that the best you can hope for is pointed in the right direction. So you have this group of characters that um, none of them are really followers. Because Sean Bowden's never been a follower. Sammy Rochester, he damn near killed Jester Smiles, who was his best friend, just because he lost a match. Andromeda Flynn just wants to fight somebody, and Eddie Ainsworth is insane. So you have these characters, these four characters that they're not followers at all, but they've chosen to associate themselves with Arthur Pleasant because he's got this personality to him. So it'll be really interesting to see where we can take the collective, and I'm going to work on how Sammy linked up with Arthur. Sammy Rochester's always wanted to kind of fit in, but he's so angry.
Yeah, he's what's the word I'm thinking of? Um, he's always been kind of an off, yeah, like a rage fueled off. He's off upstairs, He's carrying around a teddy bear, which I forget the teddy bear's name.
He had Mikey the doll.
Mikey the doll, that's right. Oh man, I'm so excited for Sammy Rochester to be back. I think that this whole collective kind of band of misfits and circus sideshow freaks and stuff like this, it's something that is going to be really awesome to watch play out. Especially.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do with it is, and we're going to put our heads together and come up with, because there's a lot of stable stuff going on right now,
mm-hmm.
especially when you have like the new Vanguard, which is the biggest thing in the company right now. I think the way the collective can be presented can make themselves unique, especially when they're centering themselves on something like the Iron Fist Championship with Arthur Pleasant. I will say this on an in-character perspective, no criticism, just completely from an in-character perspective here. Arthur should probably be wary of Sammy Rochester because, again, trying to control that man is like trying to throw a rope lasso on a nuke once it's been fired. You're not going to control him. The best you can hope for is to point it in the right direction. And that's kind of what Arthur's been able to do to get him pointed at Courtney Hatchett. And that's the other thing I wanted to do with this segment, right? Because MJ did the heavy lifting, I think, from this segment. All I did was the Sammy Rochester. So all props to MJ. 1 second.
Yeah. Not sure how long this second's going to be.
Okay.
There you go. Cool.
So, I only wrote the Sammy part, and where all the other kind of reveals have been this brutal beating of whoever, the target was, and that's just not Sammy's style. If Sammy is going to come in, he's going to put somebody down, and, that's just about it. So that's what I kind of had happen. Sammy came in, hit that big reverse choke slam. He dropped her first, then he kind of reaches down, hits the big reverse choke slam, and that's it. He doesn't need to do anything else, and he knows it.
It was surprise after surprise after surprise with the show, and then Sammy comes in and does what he does, and they're all different types of returns and debuts and all different things. It's something that's so great about Shoot Project. Something that's so great about Shoot Project is all these different types of characters that are being added in or returning or what it is, and I'm super excited about Sammy Rochester being back too.
Yeah, and I think that's a credit to everybody in Shoot Project. I think the fact that we had multiple returns on this show and each one of them was very different. Yet Maya with the first kind of big shock of the night coming back and saving the day. Stopping something really bad from possibly happening. And you had Loco coming in to, help out X. and joining forces in a way, even with the debuting sort of Bonnie Blue. Um, and then you got um, Sammy coming back in this capacity. So all three were kind of like really different ways for these to come in and make their returns, and I think that's a credit to everybody here.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. Totally agree with that statement. Even when Bowden came back, it was adding new characters that were totally different. There's no.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a credit to the fact that we have these multiple characters that have different dimensions, different, they're very different from the characters that we write. I think it is fantastic, and it shows up in these segments that throughout this show.
Mm-hmm.
The matches were fantastic. The segments were on point. And I know Josh has always been a big believer in for pay per view. He doesn't want a lot of segments because pay per views are about them. And I think this one delivered in that aspect too.
Yeah, totally did. Especially with the World Tag Team Championships being defended right afterwards, with the Unholy Cyber Army against Vice Squad.
I love both of these teams. I've got to say it right out the gate. The Unholy Cyber Army, or I'm sorry, what was it? Black Vader and Japanese Black Vader. Um, if you don't know that reference, I suggest you take a look at Shots in the Dark from last night, and you will get that. But yeah, the Unholy Cyber Army, probably one of my favorites in Shoot Project right now. I need to see them more. And I love the Vice Squad. I was around the EWA when Sean brought them in, and I still love that.
So I've got a special place in my heart for the UCA because of our feud that we had to kind of kick things off. So, it is what it is, and I've always had a thing for Bowden. So this was fun for me to watch too.
Yeah, I mean, another match though that, considering their last encounter was an absolute bloodbath, um, again surprising that there was
No blood.
not a single blood in this match. But again, this was a match that really didn't need it. This isn't a blood feud. These guys go at each other, and it's coming from a place of, they've earned this mutual respect for one another, team, and I think it played out very well in that. And it's almost like Fire Pro, like sentient, like almost like you sat down and you had Fire Pro read all the promos
Yeah.
and say like, "Hey, make something out of it," and that's kind of what happened. You know, UCA retains, which I think is the right move because I'd love, you like to see a team like that that's supposed to be dominant in the division. And
Yeah.
you have this other team that, even though they lost, they've clearly got enough skill and will and power to kind of still make an impact.
Yeah, the Cyber Army, even though they're not jokesters, they're kind of Kerr and the taglines they say, witness and things like this. Like, yes, they're kind of goofy, but they're definitely supposed to be like the dominant team, and I think that this one is even being paired up with Nate Robideau kind of heightens that. But I think that you're right, like. It was needed for them to win this match and keep the belts on them, kind of having a continual lineage.
Yeah, and first and foremost, only a Kerr would say that they're good. Um, but really right as far as them being the dominant team and them needing to win a little bit more.
Yeah, even if they were like, I don't know what benefit would come. How do I explain this without sounding like a jerk? I don't know what benefit would come from a Vice Squad win at this time. Like, I feel like there's still a chase to be had with Vice Squad right now still. So, I think that's beneficial too. Are you still there?
There you go. I stopped hearing it for a second.
Let's see what Josh is gonna say here. I'm not sure where you fit. Stop hearing me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. There you go.
Okay, cool. They've tried a bloodbath. They've fought a more wrestling match. Yeah. Now it's like, what else can we do to beat these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point it's, you have this, like you just said, you have this big bloodbath, you have, a wrestling match. Where else can you take this? So it's almost like the UCA is in a position where they could have another go with the Vice Squad if they need to, or they can move on to another team. Because again, we're in a position with Shoot Project that has a stacked tag team division.
Yeah, yeah. And they could always come back and do this all over again, or we could see that build up with Vice Squad about how they're going to change themselves to take over the tag division. Absolutely.
Exactly, and you don't necessarily have to have it right away, because you're in a position where you can run this feud and still have the UCA defending against other folks and possibly winning matches, possibly not. But ultimately, like, you can come back to this because that's just the way this feud has gone. There's been two decisive matches, one that was a bloodbath and one that wasn't, but both won, by the UCA. So they've established themselves that they are the dominant tag team, and they have the wins over the Vice Squad. But the Vice Squad could always come back. It takes one big win in the tag team division, and maybe the Vice Squad get another shot.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement.
Will you stop barking at me?
You're just saying I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, there's no blood in this match, which doesn't need to have any blood, like we were saying before. So it's, let's take a look
No,
here.
absolutely. And I think it was a great match, and it was a good way to kind of wrap it up. And I think, when you get to these type of matches on a big pay-per-view like this, the fact that these matches can still surprise you is a great testament, especially when it comes to a big pay-per-view.
I just realized that I think that's Jane Doe does below the belt little grab there. That's kind of funny. I find that kind of humorous.
The hell were they called? I can't remember. They were saying it last night. They kept calling it.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was either.
Yeah, but
the cock grab.
Yeah, she yeah, it's kind of like the setup for the balls plex, but without the plex.
Yeah, Jesus, yes. Let's see real quick. So this match ended with a 93%.
I mean, that's respectable.
No, of course.
Considering these guys, the type of teams that they are, the Vice Squad, let's face it, or not the Vice Squad, the UCA is not going to be the technical tag team. They're not going to have the type match. They're gonna be barbaric. They're gonna be.
Yeah, we love barbaric.
Yeah, they're gonna be brawlers. They're not gonna have these big time scientific type matches. Whereas the Vice Squad, they can do a little bit more. They're still violent as all hell, but they can do a little. And I think that blends well into a match that's going to get a rating like this. Still, you're in the 90% percentile. I think you're doing pretty well.
That's 80. That's 80. That's an A. Excuse me. In school, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If you're getting an A, then you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, which leads us into the segment that follows it up with Power Devil and Super Beast calling out just anybody to step up and try to take the titles from them.
Yeah, and I like the fact that so if I can for just a moment, the Sin City Championship is like the fighting champions thing, right? Every time there's a show that's on the line. But I love the idea that the CA are coming out with the tag titles, and even after a big defense like this, they're saying who's next. They're Goldberging it, and I love that.
Goldberging it, yes, and yes, just for a moment, you can be serious, Lance Storm.
If I could be serious for a moment.
Yeah, I love the way that UCA speaks, and I think Eddie does a great job with that. That's amazing. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I love it. You know, and anybody that doesn't like the UCA is a cur.
there's a cur and a
It's a cur.
and they need a witness.
Yeah, they need to witness the greatness of the unholy cyber army.
They're an '80s power metal band mixed with Willow. It's amazing.
Yes, and they are Black Vader and Japanese Black Vader.
Black Vader,
Respect.
Japanese back there. Yep. All right.
I can never unhear or unsee that now.
Same. Yeah, Willow, like a fantasy movie from the '80s. Ben 2 asked me, Willow? And I said, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that's kind of what they are. I mean, it fits them pretty well.
So.
Oh,
And.
yeah, Ben 2's listening?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I have a request. So, first of all, Gregory,
Gregory. Oh
I've
my
been
God.
told to give you the accented Gregory.
Oh my God.
I hope that satisfies Ben 2's thing. You can blame Ben 2 for that.
I do.
You can take back like 2 good comments about Ben 2 from earlier.
You know what?
Or maybe 1.5.
See, I'm not the vengeful type, so I'm not going to.
Okay, that works.
Let's see here. Which leads us to the main event of the evening. Charlie J. Hitchens versus Buck Dredston.
This feud has been a joy to, because I had no idea where it was going, and the fact that it kind of it came out of nowhere, but it didn't, because there were those segments that they were doing previously, but it was almost like I thought those were kind of like one-off type segments that didn't really amount to a lot. But then the end of Redemption comes, and I figured something was going to happen with the Vanguard because of the promos and segments that had led up to it. But CJH coming out and braining Buck with the ball peen hammer was out of left field.
Yes.
And that like jump started this whole thing. And then of course, Buck Dresden, absolutely obliterating her with the buckshot on Revolution and showing that, hey, I'm the champion, was cool too. But then it leads into this whole thing that as violent as Buck gets with Charlie, that's not the way he's going to win this, because she's like the fucking Terminator. She's going to keep coming. She's like a cross between De Niro's character in Cape Fear and the goddamn Terminator. Like, she's not going to stop. You're going to be saved. And that's kind of what she's done with Buck. And when she buries him, Buck could have, as B said last night, Buck could have easily come out of that and just been like, I'm going to destroy this chick now. But instead, he went about it a different way. He approached her and he gave her what she seemed to need or seemed to want. And that's what led to this thing being a death match. It's a blood feud, but at the same time, it's something that it's almost like mutually assured destruction. Something's got to give. They both know it, and that's why this match was agreed to. Because this didn't have to be a death match. But, in one respect, it didn't. But in the same respect, it really did to settle this. To finally be able to move past it. Either Charlie's going to break Buck, or Buck is going to do what he has to do to survive and, evolve in her eyes.
Exactly. That the from start to finish, I think the match is, like, there's only 1 or 2 spots where they actually hit the ropes, and it's just them fighting inside a steel cage. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, and I thought that was great too, because when those spots are done as sparingly as they were, they have more impact.
Mm-hmm.
So if every couple seconds, one of them was getting thrown into barbed wire. It starts kind of being almost comical, right? You kind of laugh at it a little bit. But
Yeah.
the fact that they treated this match almost like you said, like a cage match where they fought inside the confines of this barbed wire, and then occasionally one would get thrown into it and it kind of explodes a little. Like the visual of it exploding as they hit it is, it's impactful, and it's something to play off of if you go down into the, if you role play off of it and you role play your reactions to it. It's something that they can work with. So I thought that was really interesting. It was bloody. It was what it needed to be. It was one of the few matches that had that kind of bloody, kind of visceral thing, and it had to have that. And I love the key with one of the little things that with Buck wearing the Badass Brotherhood vest for the
Yeah.
match.
He's got the Badass Brotherhood logo on his shirt and everything like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I thought that was something because one of the things that Charlie did was throw Magnus in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was, a lot of stuff that, culminated in this violent affair, which, of course, Buck Dresden pulls off with a burning hammer. He doesn't obliterate her with the buckshot. He doesn't critical her, but he puts her down definitively with a move that just looks absolutely like you had to have a move like that. I don't think it would have been believable for Buck to win with anything else other than a move like that.
Yeah.
Just because of how Charlie's come off.
Had to go to the well for it, I suppose you could say.
Yeah. I will say this. I don't know why, but visually in this match with the vest, Buck Dresden looks like John Moxley.
So I was trying to figure out.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't say you're wrong. I was gonna say is I was trying to figure out like what he reminds me of. I was sitting here thinking like a cross between Sami Zayn and Moxley.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Moxley, which is crazy. But the style of the match. Stop. The style of the match was Charlie is just brutal, and Buck is just basically fighting for his life. And the fact that he comes up with a big win with that burning hammer is just great. And the post match was short, sweet, simple, and very to the point, and it shows definitively that Buck's done with Charlie, at least for now.
At least for now.
As he's walking as he's walking back up and he even turns to look back and she has him, he smiles, and then he kind of goes back up with his title, slings it over his back. That's the kind of definitive I win.
Yeah, that segment. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep. It's the visual of just him walking up the ramp afterwards and kind of like leading into the CK Butcher kind of storyline that we have coming up now. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Revelation in a nutshell. Overall, again, like I said at the beginning, this was a heavy show that kind of had a lot of violence to it and a lot of like things coming to a head. But I thought it was fantastic for it being kind of I don't even know what to call it, the odd man out type show, which isn't like and who knows, we might see Revelation as a staple going forward, but for it not being one of like the big three that have a lot of history and shoot, I think it came off extremely, extremely well. It came off as a special.
I just double checked that match also got 100%.
As it should have. And that's my match of the night because first of all, it's the main event. It's the proverbial money that put asses, the match that put asses.
Yeah.
That's what you come for. You come for the main event, and just the story behind it, and kind of the transformative story that's happened with both Buck and Charlie. You saw a change in Charlie too. And like I said, she could be a face if she wanted to slide herself over time, but she could also still continue this monster.
So Josh is saying that he wrote the last segment too, which is awesome.
Props.
Yeah,
props
props
Josh.
for that. That's a good visual. That's incredibly good.
Yeah,
visual.
I mean, it was. I thought it was a great visual because it sets that tone of finality where sometimes you're not sure is this thing going to continue or we're going to see more, but when you see him kind of walk up and look back, do that, like, and definitively show that Charlie's like, it's not like Charlie's getting up and staring a hole into it. She didn't get up, and he just like almost acknowledging, like, I got this. Let's move on. Which we now know it's going to be Buck Dresden and C.K. Butcher in the main event of Reckoning Day, which I am so happy to see him for that.
Yes, and that is going to be two hosses going after each other. I want to see a little bit. Like, I want to see what C.K. Butcher does with this opportunity, being as he's brand new, theoretically, to the company. So I want to see kind of the storyline that he comes up with in this case. And man, I'm just stoked for this one coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked a little tiny bit with. I haven't gotten the pleasure to work with him for long, but I can just say from working with him, and I know you worked with him because you had the whole thing with Stein and King. Um, and my interaction was kind of a brief thing with Mephisto and King that lasted like a show or two to get him into the Primus at the time. But B is fun as hell to write with, and I think Ben we are going to tear the house down with this.
Yeah, anything that B touches turns to gold. So I think this is going to be a good thing, and I think that Ben 2 is going to have a lot of fun working with B. A lot of fun working with B.
Oh yeah, I think this is great. So with all of that said, having said that, and we're talking about the main event of Reckoning Day, we are now officially on the road to Reckoning Day, which is, for those of you that may be listening later that don't know this, Reckoning Day is Shoot Project WrestleMania. This is our biggest show of the year. It's the black and gold show, as Josh likes to say, or that he has said it. And Revolution 149 coming up is first kind of step on the road to this show. So do you want to talk about the bookings for 149?
Yeah, let's talk about the bookings for 129.
All right.
Let's see here.
I,
So, like you were talking about earlier, the Battle Royal for the Sin City contendership match.
yes. We do have that. We have a lot of new folks. We have Draco Dragota, Dr. Ned Reform, Nemesis, Danny Payne, Jackie Senegal, Haskell Payne. I wonder if those two are related. Mr. Buttons and Joshua Breedlove. So first and foremost, stoked that we get to see Breedlove because low-key one of my favorite characters. But this is going to be interesting because it's going to show we got a really good mix of new folks coming in and some established characters in this, and I'm extremely excited to see how this.
Yeah, I think this is a good leaping off point for all the new people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially because you right away you're put into a match for the contendership, and I think that's really cool. So who's going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's getting this opportunity right now. You're coming into the Shoot Project, and it's not a competitive environment at all. But you're getting this opportunity to showcase kind of what you want to bring to the table. And again, we have the policy of, role play if you want to. It's not something that's required. We don't have strict limits, but if you want to get your character's name out there, this is the way to do it because you're being put in a situation where, one, it's the opener to her show, and in Shoot Project, the opening match of the show is just as, if not more important than the main event because it's what sets the pace. So I think I'm excited to see the work that the new folks put in, what these characters are and who they are. I'm excited to see if Danny Payne and Haskell Payne are long-lost second cousins. And I'm excited to see how pissed off Joshua Breedlove is that he's got to compete in another battle.
Let's see here. So my pick immediately is Joshua Breedlove, just because I love the character, and I feel like there's a bit of what I wanted Stein to be for a long time, but also what Stein is and such like that. So my pick is going to be Joshua Breedlove. But it'd be really cool if one of the new people, won this and then got the shot at the title versus either Void or Jacob Mephisto, because you two would be great to work with new characters and
Oh
like kind
yeah,
of
I kind of like I like the idea of Haskell Payne winning it, just because,
yeah
especially if he's all hopped up on some Bingo's brew or something before he comes in. Um, but from a pure story standpoint, I think I want Nemesis. She's got kind of like this is
yes
kind of almost her second chance for
yeah
her, but really I can kind of see any of these characters based on what I've kind of read just from their descriptions, character bios. Um, this could be really interesting either way, but if I had to make a prediction, I'm going to go with the dark horse and say it's going to be Haskell Payne, coming back from the brutal injury that he sustained at the hands of the new Vanguard, winning it, and then possibly going up against, if he were to retain, Void.
yeah, that'd be really cool. What I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna take a quick break. I gotta use the bathroom and stuff like that. I've been trying to hold it off. I'm gonna take a quick break,
Yeah, sure.
like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll be
Yeah,
right back. Okay.
that works for me.
Okay. Cool. I really gotta pee. 1 second here. I'm gonna turn back on the music and such. Actually, if you want me to, I can leave you just to go over the bookings if you want.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I can run through the bookings real quick and at least announce them. And
Sure.
when you get back, we can talk about a couple things.
Okay. Cool. Let's do that then. I'll be right back.
Yep.
All right. Thanks.
All right. So while Greg is away, um, we'll talk a little bit about the bookings here. So we just talked about the opening match, the Sin City Contendership Battle Royal. Going forward, we have a six-man tag team match in a six-man tournament featuring new Vanguard, which I will assume is going to be a combination of Scion, Avarice, and Malice. Void is an event here. Versus Extremely Martial Law, which I believe is Elbow Jackson, along with Wyatt Dread and Katana. Martial Law is my tag team, but I believe Ben handles Elbow Jackson. That match will be fun. Um, Funny enough, Martial Law actually, I believe, had the first match uh, with the new Vanguard as a unit. I believe it was Scion, which Martial Law did lose. Up next, we have a singles match, which is one of the Iron Fist play-in matches between Devin Derbyshire and Bonnie Blue. That'll be interesting. I like Devin's work, and Bonnie is brand new to the Shoot project, but is a veteran of this E-Fed game of ours. So it'll be fun to see that. Another Iron Fist play-in, we have Dan Stein, Crawford going head to head. So we've already seen some work from Stein on this match, and I'm interested to see how Nikki Crawford approaches this and see how this plays out. We also have a third Iron Fist play-in match with Azraith Dimitri and Montgomery Creed. Very excited to see how Montgomery Creed comes off here, and we know Az is coming off a big win in a pretty violent affair versus Mephisto. And finally, we have the main event, which is for the Sin City Championship. Anytime, really, that there's not a huge match on Revolution, we are going to have the Sin City Championship can main event the show, and that'll be Jacob Mephisto. And so once Greg gets back here, we'll go over the matches maybe a little bit more in depth and talk about them a little bit. But that is the show. This show is kind of a prelude to the Revolution 150, the championship. So once Greg gets back, we will finish that up.
Hey, how's it going? All right, so I've commandeered this broadcast because we just for dead air for a while. What's up, Tim? Welcome back. Just hanging out here, trying to see what's going on, figure out the jam and whatnot.
I can hear you now.
Good.
There. Okay, so I've kind of run down the Revolution card.
All right, welcome back, Greg. I'm gonna jump out of here since you're back, unless he's not back.
Greg, is that you?
Sorry, we'll cut this all in post production, right?
Yeah, that'll work.
You just
Thought
talked
I
about
heard.
bookings and kind of gave a rundown of the card. Did you guys have anything else that you were going to talk about after that?
I think that was it. I don't know if he wanted to kind of talk about the matches, what's coming up, but I know we were gonna. I mean, my whole thing was just kind of running down the card a little bit. I think we're pretty much good on that too.
I'm excited to see what the new people do personally. Like I'm very interested. I both love and hate that I can throw people into these giant multi-person matches. I love it because like it gives me a chance to get a look at everybody, and I hate
You are instead of just doing like a sequence that doesn't meet the goal. Now they have something to kind of write, and with it being all in Fire Pro, it gives us an opportunity to kind of see these characters the first time too.
Yeah, for sure. And then like throwing the so I deliberately went with a veteran versus rookie kind of vibe with the Iron Fist stuff, just because I wanted to see how some of these new people like worked against some of the people who've been here, in Greg and Ben's case for like 20 almost 20 years, and then in Devin Derbyshire's case since we brought this back pretty much. And I think it's a good opportunity for him because he's been putting in work. So
Yeah, and I think that's a huge credit to him too, because there's been times where he's not booked and he's still putting role plays out, which I think is fantastic.
for sure,
to be doing. I like the vibe, younger versus characters, and I'm extremely interested to see how some of them mesh. I've already seen Stein's first piece, and kind of like in typical Dan Stein fashion, he's like, "Who the hell is Nikki Crawford?" And I'm just interested how that response comes.
yeah, and it's a big first match for Montgomery Creed too. Like we talked about in our show that Azrit Dimitri has been kind of the workhorse of shoot since we came back, and that's a big deal right there.
Yeah, especially I think Azrait's lost 3 total matches. He's lost to Coleman, he's lost to Void, and he's lost to Mephisto. But I think he went on that whole like Reign of Terror championship run for a while, and I think the Iron Fist division is almost a perfect division for transition.
For sure, and I guess the other match besides the Sin City Championship match was the continuation of the 6-man tag title tournament. I know you talked about Extremely Martial on the new Vanguard, and This is going to be. Let me look at the booking sheet real quick. Yeah, this will. The winner of this match faces Godspeed at Shut Up and Fight 10, and the winner of that match will face the Holler in the finals at Revolution 150 for the Triad Championships. So that should be good.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be fantastic. And hey, if Haskell Payne can pull off the Battle Royal, he has a shot at the Sin City Dip one.
Could you imagine Haskell 2 belts over here?
Oh my God, that would be the greatest promo in the history of Shoot Project if that were to happen. I feel like, and I like writing martial law occasionally too. It's fun to write, and I'm interested in kind of collaborating with Ben too, to see what we can put something out for this match. And I'd like the dynamic that martial law had the kind of first match as the new Vanguard as a unit in a tag team match, which they lost.
What's your take on Mephisto and Void? I mean, it's obviously very close to your chest.
So Mephisto Void's going to be fun. One, because I have no idea who Void's handler is, and I refuse to believe that it's MJ. And two, the idea that Mephisto has an opportunity to do something that only two other Shoot Project soldiers have ever done, and be 3 times champion. That's definitely something in his mind that's going to push to the front. But I'm really interested to see how these two interact, because Void is this like submission powerhouse machine. Mephisto is more tactical style submission specialist, so that'll be fun to see. And I'm probably going to write at least one more play for it. That was awesome.
Yeah, I haven't read the Void. I actually haven't read either yours or the Void promo yet, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. I have not simmed the matches. I like to sim the matches before I record them, just to kind of see like how they play out. And almost always, what Fire Pro does when I'm simming it and not recording it versus what it does when I'm recording it is a completely different thing. But I still like to do it anyway.
Yeah, that tends to be fun, and I really like the idea that Void has attached himself to Dimitri's. Adds kind of this little element to me for this. I thought that was pretty neat. Kind of a tie up the finality of that I just did.
Yeah, I don't know, should be a good show. I hate the idea that the Revolution 149 is kind of just like a build show, especially following such a strong pay-per-view. But with us deciding to do the championship edition for a 150, which is like a landmark show, it's just kind of how it worked out. And plus, I screwed up the timeline. I've messed up timelines for like the last fucking 6 weeks, it feels like, and having to like shoehorn the 6-man tag tournament into finality so that we can actually decide those titles is
yeah. I mean, I
it's
think
kind of how it goes.
I think you can use segments to kind of do the Fallout portion for Revelation. I think if we get some good segments on the show, we build it that way and then kind of transition it. It's almost like the Raw after WrestleMania, where a lot of wacky shit happens, but then you start building towards your next show. So I think that 149 is do that as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
All right. So I think that about wraps everything up. I don't know that we were going to cover anything else. I'm not sure if Greg has just not been able to get back on, because I thought I saw his little icon light up green.
Yeah, it said he said he needed a couple more minutes, but if you guys are done, then you guys are done.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything we're going to cover. This was pretty good first show, because I think the first one that I've done. But I thought it came out pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I sat here and listened to it while I tried to fix a work problem that I was not able to get fixed. So that part sucks, but having you guys to kind of help me through it was good. And I like the different take that you guys had from what we did on shots. So good stuff.
All right, yeah. Probably do another one when Reckoning Day comes around. What's that, January?
Yeah, January, I think 16th.
Yep, that sounds
Yep,
about right.
January 16th, Reckoning Day, and then we'll do something for the year-end awards too, which is going to be before that, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, appreciate you hopping on here to finish this up. And Greg, if you can hear us, thank you again for hosting this. Y'all have a good night now.
Yep, take it easy.